how's it going? Listen, I know you're sick of hearing about AI this, AI that. Every other video on YouTube is some skinny Californian 20-something gesturing at a graph that looks like Saddam Hussein wearing clown shoes. But there's an important question that I am genuinely wondering, which is, if AI really does take all our jobs, what do we do after that? Let's talk about it. So for real, you ever think about what we do when AIs can do everything? You've got AIs driving cars and flying planes, and they deliver everything, they control crop growth, they construct buildings, everything. They do everything. What then? First of all, some of the soyest soy boys amongst us will say they won't be able to do everything. You know, sure, they'll drive taxis, but there'll be a person in a control room managing the taxis to make sure that they all get fixed if they break down, or to make sure emergency services get alerted if there's an accident. Sure, they'll do all the office work, but there'll be an office manager telling them which paperwork to fill out. Sure, they'll plant and harvest crops, but there'll be a human farm manager telling the AIs what to plant and when to harvest it. I hate to break it to you, Chief, but that's a failure of imagination. Why would we keep any human components in any of these industries? Because humans are reliable, you might say? But nah. Listen, don't get me wrong, humans are good. Compared to every other animal on Earth, humans have the intelligence of fucking demigods. Don't believe me? Next time you need directions to the hospital, pull over and ask a fucking doggo. They will not be able to tell you. A human person man might though, but compared to a hypothetical artificial general intelligence, humans ain't shit. And you don't need an AGI to do most things. A bunch of narrow AIs trained to do one task each is really all you need. And that's the scenario I'm really thinking about here, because I think it's kind of unavoidable. You've got an AI that's good at driving, you've got a different AI that's good at building houses with bricks and mortar, you've got another AI whose entire job is to attach a milking machine to a cow's udder. You can make a narrow AI designed to do every conceivable task. Now again, you might say, don't we need humans to manage what they're doing though? And no, I don't think so. If you have an AI system that can drive a taxi, and an automated taxi company has a bunch of those AIs piloting each taxi that you have, all you need is then one other different type of narrow AI that looks at all the GPS coordinates and all the other bits of data from the taxis and manages all of their routes efficiently and does things like noticing if emergency services need to be called, right? You just have more AIs further up in the hierarchy. You can have the AIs that drive, then you can have a manager AI, and then you can have a divisional manager AI managing all the local AI managers. At some point you have some kind of overseer AI that manages the entire company to maximize profits for the literal one goddamn guy that's even in the company. And sure, temporarily, as this technology is getting better, we're gonna have people managing the AI systems to make sure they don't fuck up, but each narrow AI only needs to be better than a human at the one specific thing that it does before having a human in the mix is a needless expense that just makes the system less efficient. I don't attach a specific timeline to when I think this is gonna happen because there's a lot of factors involved. It depends on the speed of AI development and what regulations end up getting put in place and a bunch of geopolitical bullshit. But the point I'm trying to make is that there's no reason in principle why automating basically everything wouldn't happen. In my experience, everyone's first instinct is to think that the companies that make the AIs that can do everything better than humans will probably end up owning basically everything because they own all of the things that take everyone's job. And step 2 of that thought process is to say, well, that's obviously a bad thing, and therefore building AGIs is a bad thing that we shouldn't do if we have any choice in the matter, and we do because we're the things that are building them. And I mean, yeah, kinda. Nobody wants inequality to get to that kind of ridiculous point. Well, some people do. Although I seriously doubt you're one of those people if you're watching this video. If you are, join my Patreon, you fucking slut. Sorry to interrupt, this is just a quick message to say, statistically speaking, you're probably not subscribed, so I'll make you a deal. Press the subscribe button and I won't come over to your house and do this. Alright, thanks, back to the video. Anyway, yeah, inequality is bad, but like, open question, how would that actually work? Because, in my head, the concern will be inequality to begin with, fueled by an AI arms race between the US and China, neither of which are going to want to fully regulate or slow down because that'll give an edge to their competitor. But at some point, the narrow AI systems will be ubiquitous and functional to a point where a decent proportion of people in the developed world will start losing their jobs to automation. Those AI systems are going to make basically every industry insanely more efficient. Production will be up, quality will be up, fuck-ups at the chocolate bar factory caused by creatures falling in the syrup tank on Bring Your Horse to Work Day will be down. All of those things are good, right? If there's more good things made faster and cheaper with a quality that's as good or better than they are now, and which are available for all of us to buy, that's a good thing, right? But there's one small problem with that, bucko, which is that that doesn't work if nobody has any money to buy any shit with. There'll be a point where, as a society, we'll be richer than ever, and probably by quite a long way, but the socioeconomics of how we get the shit produced by society to the people who live in society won't fucking work anymore. And getting stuff to people who want the stuff is arguably the main point of having a society in the first place. So like, what the fuck are we even doing? So we're going to be in a bit of a pickle, particularly since nobody having a job means nobody has any money, which means nobody's paying for these AI optimized services, meaning none of these businesses are even going to be viable and no one's even going to be paying taxes, meaning the entire world economy is just going to eat shit into a dumpster. It's all good living in a country with immense wealth, but if there's no way for any of the people in the country to access that wealth, it's like a bunch of cavemen sitting on top of a giant oil deposit. Like, yeah, the wealth's hypothetically there, but it doesn't actually do anything for anyone. And then when no one buys anything and all those AI-driven companies fold because no one can afford their services, everyone's going to be looking at each other going, oh, this was so unexpected. No, it's not. It's obviously going to fucking happen. So listen, like, half of the fucking video essays on YouTube try to have a moral at the end, and basically all of them boil down to, and therefore capitalism is bad. To be clear, that's not my stance. I don't really like or dislike the way the economy works. In some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad. The fact that it produces inequality doesn't make it evil, and the fact that it's been behind the wealthiest period in human history doesn't make it unquestionable either. It's just the system that won out. It won out over feudalism back in the day. It won out over attempts at centrally planned economies more recently. I don't love or hate the idea of market economies or whatever. My point really is just that a market economy assumes a few things. It assumes people create value in some specific way by doing a job. They get paid money for doing the job. The money can then be spent on anything they like, and then so long as they've covered their essentials, they can go out and use the rest of their income to have a good quality of life because they can buy any of the goods or services produced by anyone else in the world. It's honestly a pretty neat system, but it takes a big fucking club to the face when the people who want to buy things aren't also the same things that create value. If value is exclusively created by a bunch of entities over here, and the value is only going to be used by a different group of entities over here, tell me if I'm stupid, but to my understanding, there is literally no way for a market economy to work. So my stance is we're going to have to end up with a post-capitalist type economy of some variety in the future. What that is exactly is anyone's guess, really. I suppose the worst available outcome is some kind of corporate feudalism thing. I have heard a fair few economists talking in that direction. In the worst case, I guess that's basically where we all end up being citizens of AI megacorporations, which would be kinda cyberpunk, but mainly just very dystopian. But even then, why would those corporations admit people into the corporations, even as slaves who just work to be able to live in the building? If an AI could do the work of those people faster and better, what's the point in having the people? So that doesn't really seem like a long-term possibility to me. In terms of an outcome that's actually workable and desirable, I think of the problem like this. The goal is to figure out a way of having a system that takes the immense value deliverable by fully automated AI systems and finding a way of delivering that value and distributing it to a population regardless of whether those people were directly involved in the creation of that value. I know that'll get the communism allegations flying around, and funny as it is to call this fully automated luxury gay space communism, I wouldn't actually call this communism personally. I guess you could. To me it seems a bit like calling a plane a big bird made of metal. Like, yeah, but not really. There's kind of a lot of things implied in the made of metal part of that, and the same goes for fully automating everything as opposed to having a communist ministry of bullshit assign you a pointless function so they can justify giving you some table scraps to live off. Like, you tend to hear people say communism is good in theory but doesn't work in practice. But in my mind, if you're getting a different result from your theory and your practice, that just means your theoretical understanding is shit. In my mind, communism doesn't really work in theory or in practice for at least one reason, which is that if you have a group of people who are all equal and all have jobs doing whatever they individually like and whatever they're all individually good at, and they all get paid the same amount for doing anything, which does sound nice, I'll admit. The second anyone decides that they should be the one in charge of how the system itself works, the system is no longer equal, and not only is it not equal, but it's pretty ripe for abuse by whoever's in charge, along with other issues with it like market pressures still being there but just going unacknowledged. But my point is that if automation did everything, like actually everything, that kinda solves it. There'd be no egoic chuckle fucks at the helm hoovering up all the Rice Krispies for themselves. Like, the main problems with what we usually call communism would at the very least be significantly less pronounced, and I think the dynamics in the system will be so different that it really just becomes a different thing altogether. Having a benevolent AGI overlord isn't necessarily the best idea either, though, particularly if something goes wrong and it decides to use humanity as toilet paper for some weird reason. I almost think the best outcome might be something with the good aspects of both market market economies and fully automated luxury gay space communism that may or may not actually be communism. Like, this specific idea I'm about to tell you is probably stupid, but something like this might be vaguely in the right direction. Maybe have a centralized AI system, but instead of one central AI lording over everyone and everything, there's loads of them, and each individual AI is associated with certain people to be responsible for. Like, it gets allocated 1,000 people who all live in the same city, or 100, or just one family, or even just one person. Maybe everyone gets their own AI, I don't know. Anyway, that AI system does whatever work needs doing, it trades with other AIs, and it owns lower level AI assets which provide value for humanity. Essentially, it owns companies that do things. In other words, the AIs will be participating in a market economy amongst themselves, but the way the AIs look after their people is more gay space communism, which is drastically more workable for, like, a couple of dozen people than it is for an entire fucking nation with hundreds of millions of people in it. Something like that would work a bit better than having a central AI trying to plan how much every resource on Earth should be valued at. That was a problem that I believe the Soviets ran into when they were trying to figure out how the fucking economy like that is actually meant to work. Imagine trying to figure out how much every variant of every item made in every region of the world and transported to every other region of the world is worth in respect to all the relevant local and global conditions. You end up juggling millions of factors, all of which can change on a moment-by-moment basis. I'm sure a near-omniscient global artificial superintelligence could keep track of all of that much easier than we could, but the whole thing might just be kind of unnecessary. Like, my understanding is the equivalent of doing that in a market economy is just asking someone how much they're willing to pay for something, which is hilariously simpler and probably more efficient. While we're talking about communism, it's actually interesting to consider whether some form of money would still be in use after an AI automation scenario takes off. Like, even if this works perfectly and we get the post-AI jobless sci-fi Star Trek utopia, the world will still have finite resources, so you might be able to have a house with 5 pools in it, but if you want all of those pools to be made out of solid gold, that might actually be crossing a line. So how does the system work? Do we allocate X amount of resources per day to each person? That seems a little clunky. It's like having a different currency for each individual thing. Do we quantify the world's average daily available resources into a certain amount of currency and then allocate that currency to people UBI style to spend however they like? Like, I don't know. What do you think actually is the best way? I'd be interested to hear what you think. I'm not sold on any particular solution. I'm definitely open to thinking through various possibilities, but I think something's got to happen, or by the end of the century, the Earth's going to be covered in piles of high-end consumer electronics and enough food to end world hunger 5 times over, sitting there doing nothing, walled off from 10 billion people who are starving to death. I'm not ringing any alarm bells, I'm just saying this is probably worth thinking about before we get slapped by the long dick of automation. Anyway, that's all. Thanks as always to my elite level supporters. Thunderbolt 22A10, who just reached the singularity. Nomad Greg, who invented the sequel to Money, Money 2. Andrew Mole, who's an artificial superintelligence cosplaying as a natural regular guy. John Bejarano, who can only travel by rolling really quickly like Sonic the Hedgehog. JDK, whose house is the world's 3rd biggest repository of spaghetti bolognese. Mutantius Doom, who built a quantum computer and hid it inside a can of beans. Stormester Ritter, whose party trick is frisbeeing a pancake into the mouth of a passing dog. And thanks to all my other supporters too. Don't forget to join the Patreon or the channel membership if you want to be featured in my video credits or chat on Discord. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Over and out.